All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about one of the most critical battlegrounds for Web3, the law. We're going to explore how DAOs can go from being these legally ambiguous ghosts to resilient, compliant organizations that are actually built to last. So, let's get into how to forge that legal armor. Let's kick things off with a question that should really make you think. If your DAO gets hit with a lawsuit or a massive fine, who actually pays up? The code? The treasury? Or you? The scary truth is, for most DAOs out there right now, that liability could blow right past the organization and come straight for your personal bank account. And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today, and it's captured perfectly by this quote from our source, the War Library. See, this isn't about surrendering the ideals of decentralization, not at all. It's about being smart. It's about using the law as a shield, not a shackle, to make sure these new kinds of organizations actually survive to build the future. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to break down the threat, the liability trap. Then we'll open up the armory and check out three powerful legal shields: the onshore option in Wyoming, the offshore fortress in the Cayman Islands, and the digital native setup from the Marshall Islands. From there, we'll look at the ongoing battle between privacy and compliance. And finally, we'll talk about the end game, how to build a truly unstoppable DAO. Okay, so first things first, we need to understand the danger. Back in the early days, a lot of people thought that if an organization only existed on the blockchain, it was basically untouchable by the real world. Well, that belief has turned out to be dangerously, dangerously wrong. Here's the key legal trap. When a DAO doesn't have a formal legal structure, courts often just treat it as a general partnership. Now, what's so bad about that? Well, a general partnership has no corporate veil. There's absolutely no legal separation between the organization and its members. It's the default setting, and believe me, it's the most vulnerable you can be. And this slide just lays out the domino effect perfectly. Step 1. The DAO gets in some kind of legal trouble. Step 2. There's no corporate shield to stop the bleeding. So Step 3. That liability flows directly to the members. And we're talking about everyone who holds a governance token or voted on a proposal. Which leads to Step 4. Suddenly, your personal assets could be on the line. So the takeaway here is super simple, but absolutely vital. An unwrapped DAO means unlimited personal liability for you. A legal wrapper, on the other hand, creates a shield. And let's be crystal clear. The goal here isn't to centralize the mission. It's about protecting the people who are building it. All right, so now that we're clear on the threat, let's get to the good part. It's time to open up the armory and look at the actual solutions. We're going to walk through the three main types of legal armor that DAOs are using right now to protect themselves. Our first stop is right here in the United States. Wyoming was a total pioneer on this front. They were the very first to create a legal structure specifically for DAOs. It's become the go-to onshore option for a ton of projects that need a solid legal footing in the US. The real genius of the Wyoming law is that it officially says an organization can be algorithmically managed. That basically means your smart contract can be treated like a board of directors. This gives you incredible US legitimacy, which is huge for raising money. But, and it's a big but, there's a trade-off. You need a registered agent in the state, and it plants your DAO squarely under the watchful eye of the SEC and the IRS. Okay, now let's head offshore and look at our next piece of armor, the Cayman Islands Foundation. This is the global heavyweight champion, the structure favored by many of the world's biggest DeFi protocols. The Cayman model is pretty fascinating. It's what's called an orphan entity, which means it has no owners or shareholders. This mirrors the decentralized ethos just perfectly. It exists only to serve the DAO's mission. Plus, it's tax neutral. No corporate tax, no capital gains tax. That's huge for a global treasury. So what's the catch? The Caymans now demand very strict financial reporting. You're trading total financial privacy for tax freedom. Our third and final option is the truest digital native of the bunch, the Marshall Islands DAO, or MDAO. You see, while Wyoming and Cayman sort of adapted old laws for new tech, the Republic of the Marshall Islands built something brand new from the ground up, specifically for DAOs. And this is a real game changer. Under their law, the DAO itself is recognized as a legal person. It's a ghost in the shell strategy, right? The entity gets legal standing, but it's still just a bunch of smart contracts. It's fast, it's cheap, and it's perfect for things like social DAOs or nonprofits. But make no mistake, this isn't some lawless pirate cove. It sticks to serious international standards. So let's just put it all side by side. This table really clears things up. You'd probably choose Wyoming if you need U.S. legitimacy to bring in big investors. You'd go with Cayman to manage a massive global treasury in a tax-efficient way, and you might pick the Marshall Islands for a quick, cheap wrapper for digital-first community. Every option is a strategic choice, and each one comes with a clear trade-off. But here's the thing. Just choosing a wrapper? That isn't the end of the story. Nope. Once you've got your armor on, the war is fought every single day on what the War Library calls the invisible front line. And that's this constant tension between what your members want and what regulators demand. And this slide lays out that core conflict perfectly. DAOs are caught in this pincer movement. On one side, your community is demanding privacy, the ability to be anonymous. On the other side, global financial regulators are demanding identity verification and total transparency to stop things like money laundering. So how on earth can any organization satisfy both? Well, technology might just have the answer. Enter zero-knowledge proofs, or ZKPs. This is kind of the emerging holy grail for this problem. It lets a user prove something is true, like say, I am not on a sanctions list, without actually having to reveal the private data that proves it. It's a way to be compliant without completely sacrificing the core value of privacy. Okay, so we've identified the risk, we've gone through the armor, and we understand the daily battle. That brings us to our final section, the end game. How do we put all these pieces together to build an organization that is truly, truly resilient? Well, the most advanced strategy out there is something the source calls modular legal engineering. The core idea is to stop thinking of your legal structure as this permanent, concrete foundation. Instead, you treat your legal entity like a software plugin. It's something you can upgrade, you can swap out, or you can even combine with others as the global landscape shifts. And this leads to something called the multi-wrapper tactic. For example, a single, huge DAO could use a Wyoming LLC to legally hire its developers in the US, a Cayman Foundation to hold its global treasury and intellectual property, and a Marshall Islands entity for its community governance. By spreading itself across jurisdictions like this, it becomes jurisdiction agnostic. If one country suddenly becomes hostile, it doesn't sink the whole ship. Which brings us to our final thought. The real journey here is from an unincorporated ghost with unlimited liability to a strategically wrapped entity, all the way to a multi-jurisdictional organism that can adapt and survive. The goal is to build something as permanent as the code it runs on. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Is your organization built to endure, or is it just waiting for the first big storm? Is it built to be unstoppable?